And you are good.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome to the March 4th BET Operating Budget Review. Madam Clerk, can I ask you to please call a roll?
Mayor Rilling,
Here.
Mr. Abrams,
Here?
Mr. Camacho, Mr. Constant, Mr. Gilleret,
Here.
Mr. Casimis, Miss Yang.
Here.
We have 4 commissioners. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Before we begin the operating review process, Mr. Mayor, are there any remarks that you would like to make to start us off?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for all of you who are serving on the Board of Estimate and Taxation, especially during this difficult time. I also want to thank our department heads who really worked hard to try to bring in a budget that I think we can all work on, and they've risen to the charge as they normally do, and they've scrubbed their budgets. And we know that this board will go over all the line items in each department and see where we might be able to find some other savings. I know that, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very challenging year. During the reval, we found that the commercial side of the properties either were lowered, valued, or they remained flat. Whereas the residential side, due to the influx of people from various parts of the tri-state area and beyond, the residential side was a significant increase in valuation. As we started looking, thankfully, some of the apartment buildings that are being built are considered commercial. If it wasn't for some of them, the situation we'd be in would be far worse than we are. But we are still working every day. I work with my chief of staff, who's joining us this evening, to look and see if we can't scrub some more, to look and see if we can't find some revenue that perhaps we were looking to add into the budget. So this is a work in progress, as it always is. And we know that we need to provide the services for the city of Norwalk, but we also need to make sure that we don't overtax people who are paying quite a few dollars in taxes already. So again, we look forward to the process. I think with a little bit of elbow grease, I think we're going to be able to come in with a budget that's a little bit better than what we see right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we begin the process, I will remind us as a BET what our charter is, and that is to understand and to challenge the expense associated with each department, but not necessarily to comment or to drive any conversation around how they actually operate within their environment, right? Our job is to make sure that the budget that they have in place is appropriate given all the challenges that the mayor put out, and not to debate how they in fact execute within their departments. That said, we should be asking questions for clarity on operations to help understand budget, but not get into a lot of the detail as to what they do. That is not our scope. With that said, Tom, I will kind of turn it over to you to lead us through tonight's discussion. I know we've got 8 different departments we're going to be looking at this evening, and hopefully we can move through this efficiently and effectively.
Sure. I am going to ask folks to be a little patient. My email is blowing up with people who can't get into the meeting somehow. So I'm firing off invites as quickly as I can to individuals. But in any case, yes.
Tom, they might be using the ones that we got from Lola or something earlier. Maybe you should tell them to use the one you gave us for the earlier meeting. That's what we all used.
Yeah, it's the same link.
Okay.
Yeah, not sure what the issue is, but
Tom, I had the same issue. I tried Lola's, it didn't work, but yours did.
okay. And I see some people coming in now, so just thought of something else, but anyway, strike that. So yes, we have a number of departments this evening in general government, and then the fire and the police. So without any further ado, I will share my screen. Let me know if it's too big, too small. And I will walk you through the columns the first pass because it is quite a bit of data to see all at once.
Mr. Ellis also, and Ms. Dixon, please note that Mr. Constant has joined the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, how is this for sizing?
It works well for me. Anybody have an issue with the size of what we're seeing on the screen? And I think you're in good shape, Tom.
Okay, so over on the left-hand side, we have the department and then all of the descriptions, line items of the different accounts. We've got a few years of actuals, 22 and 23. We've got last year's history, the original approved, then the revised. Recall that the revised is the approved plus any rollovers. And then we have the original 25 requested. In other words, what the departments came back to us with on their first requests. The recommended finance recommendation, and then the recommendation no hires. I don't know if you can quite see that, but the reason for that is early on in the budget discussions, we decided that all of the requests for new hires would be tabled for this year. So that's the reason for that column. So over here, you have the 25 recommended versus the 24 approved in dollars and the percentages. So the key columns we'll be looking at tonight are right here. AA, this orange, what is recommended currently, and then the percentage and the dollar change versus the 24 approved. So for example, on the mayor's line, he is up $7,000 year over year or 3.8%. So my proposal is just to go through the various sections here, and we can look at things and decide if there are any questions while the department heads are here, and we can take it from there. So the first one is the mayor.
Tom, I'm sorry, before you get started, I know it's not in the spreadsheet, but do we have a view of FY24 forecast? I know we've got actuals year to date in column S, we've got the revised budget, but do we have a view of forecast for the year for each department?
No, but that is that is on my list of things to do going forward. It just no, we haven't gotten to that yet, so
Okay, thank you.
welcome. So the mayor's big dollar increase is really just $4,000 in the salaries. That's the equivalent of the contractual 2.35% increase. And the only other one is business expense, which is up 3,000. And the reason for that is in certain cases, I'll take a look at what the trends were over the last couple of years and put a recommendation in that's reflective of that average. So the reason for that's a little bit high is because of the actuals in 2022, which were 8,300. It did come down in 23 so far, or sorry, it did come down in 23, and right now it looks like we'll probably come in around $5,000 or $6,000 on the 24 revised. So
Tom, unless my chief of staff or Ms. Dixon has information that I might not have, I think we can drop that number down.
okay.
Mr.
That was
Livingston?
Yeah,
my
I don't have any other information.
I think I'd like to drop it down to around 4,000.
okay.
Is for FY24 actuals, is a 7 transpose? Like I see 170 to 107 to 174.
Sorry, where are you, Kendrick?
I'm looking at column S, row 6.
No, so keep in mind, these are actuals through February 29th. So those are salaries that we paid through the end of February. So right now we're right on track for meeting the target, which is 170. So actuals
Got
of
it.
7 versus a full year target of 170.
Yeah, so Kendrick, it gets to my comment earlier. We don't have a FY24 full year forecast here. We've got, 3/4 of actuals against a plan. That's all we're looking at.
Okay.
Tom, do you think for the meetings coming forward, you could just make a rough to annualize where we are on the actuals so that we can just take a look at that relative to revised and where things may be going?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean,
This
it's, yeah,
this is a little bit more than half.
yeah, it's so February is well 67% through the year. So yeah, I can just do a quick divisor formula.
That'd be great.
Which will work for the vast majority of the accounts, but not all of them. Certain things like pensions and we pay all in July upfront. There are certain items that are somewhat seasonal. So, but where applicable, I can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I think it'd be extremely helpful for us because, again, in a very tight budget year, to have a forecast actual for FY24 lets us know as we look at FY25 where we're being flat, where we're seeing true increase against forecasted actuals.
Okay.
So we got into that in the mayor's department. That'll cascade through everything we talk about.
Sure.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking down the business expense. Every penny, as you remind us every day, helps.
That's right. Thank you.
All right. Next one is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The percentage looks very high, but the dollar amount really isn't. And part of the reason for this is it's a relatively new organization. Last year, we only we just seeded a little bit for training and business expense. So compared to I see what the other contractual services, that's I believe that's language training that's in there that they had requested. So again, not a tremendous amount dollar wise, but a pretty high percentage. I think.
Did I read somewhere that the woman that was hired to do DE&I is no longer with the city? Is that an open spot right now?
It is currently an open spot, yes.
And we still intend on filling that spot. How long has it been?
Yes, we will be filling that spot. It's probably been a little over a month, or maybe just about a month that it's been vacant. We're looking to see if we can't get some savings by partnering perhaps with the Board of Education, the DEI function, and see if we can't. I've made a request of Superintendent Straya to see what her thoughts are.
That makes a lot of sense, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
To do that.
So we could see row 18 come down as part of that planning process then. Yes?
Yes.
That's the salary line.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we want to make a cut there right now, Tom, but we probably want to make a note to revisit that after the mayor's discussions with the superintendent to see if that can be reduced.
And the other contractual services of 30,000, what is the language element?
I believe that's Spanish classes. Do you recall, Tom?
Yeah, it's Spanish classes and I think some translation services.
For how many people? Do we know?
I don't know offhand how many people. It's different programs, a couple different programs there.
Yes, that was a program that the DEI director put on for the city employees to help them become conversational in or conversant in Spanish. And she's looking to, well, we're looking to do more of that. I thought it was a great idea, and it was quite a success.
I guess my only comment, Mr. Mayor, would be, given that right now there's a vacancy at that director level, and in one way or another are partnered with the BOE or independent, you'd have a new director coming in. Is that something we should potentially revisit when that new director is on board to make sure that they see as much value in it as we have in the past? Again,
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, I think the amount is not an excessive amount because I mean, I would like to see that continue for number one. Number two, if you become conversant in a language and you don't use it, you lose it. So we're going to try
Yep.
to have some of the people that went through the first class maybe take an advanced class. So we're really exploring a lot of options right now. I don't, as Mr. Ellis said, I don't think that's really a tremendous amount of money if you look at the total increase year over year. I don't think it's
Fair.
really a tremendous amount based on the overall budget. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's keep going, Tom.
All right, next section is,
I have,
all right.
I have a question. So I know last year there was a lot of discussion about multi-level learners with Board of Ed. You mentioned that they'll be sharing some of the costs here. Any idea what that amount is, or how much they'll be paying as far as?
Yeah, I think it's just an inquiry at this point, Kendrick, just the formative stages of a discussion. There's nothing has been agreed upon it yet.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay, legislative is the next one. This is basically the department that supports the Common Council. Last year was a pretty significant expenditure year, primarily because of the charter rewrite. So we do have a little bit of that left, but not nearly as much as before. So that is up a significant amount percentage wise, but not a whole lot dollar wise. The $9,000 is for freedom of information software. If you folks recall, no, I'm sorry, 9,000 that's a little bit of support from Steve Mednick throughout the ordinance change process.
Okay, questions about that? All right, then let's keep going, Tom.
All right, I'm going to jump down to the other chief of staff sections while Mr. Livingston is with us. And that begins right here on row 135. So you can see down at the bottom here, we're just going to scroll a total of $157,000 or 17%. And we do have some explanations on that. But starting up at the top, the wages and salary for the chief of staff is up 61,000 or 18%. Tom, you want to talk to that?
Well, it wasn't just to me. No, there are a couple items here that, in fact, the most significant increases in this entire classification have to do with one. Last year, the BET approved the addition of what we were calling a webmaster at the time. It's more than that, actually. That was a half year last year, and that's going to be the full year this year, which is part of that's the reason for this increase here. And then I can also go, the other big increase in this department is the assistant city clerk, which was added in. That is something that's required under the charter if the council wants it, and the council did want it. And so that's the other big change in this category.
Okay. And those positions are, you said it, Tom, but I'm just reiterating, those positions are currently staffed and individuals are on, correct?
You're breaking up, but I think you asked if they're staffed. The assistant city clerk position is staffed. The so-called webmaster is not at this point, although we've been interviewing. It's been
okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, is the assistant city clerk, is that in the wages and salary regular, or is it further down?
It's in the wages and salary regular.
Okay. So what is the change here under com and grants admin, which is,
That's actually the webmaster.
Oh, that's
Okay.
it. Okay. So I had it backwards, sorry.
Yeah, so that one half-time position becomes full-time in the webmaster communications, and then one in chief of staff. So the two big increases are
and the $20,000 for the Veterans Committee?
Yeah, that actually was transferred over from the Rec and Parks last year. They were monitoring that, but most of the requests were ultimately filtered through to Irene and the mayor. So it made sense, since they're closer to that activity, to monitor it. So see a corresponding down on the Rec and Parks side when we get to that.
Okay. I assume this is like for the Veterans Day Parade or Memorial Day Parade.
Yep, and the other thing that they did a year or so ago was the traveling Vietnam Wall. That was a Veterans Committee as well. So
Got it.
good on Chief of Staff.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're gonna go back up to Corporate Counsel. And I believe we have Mario and or Jeff Spar on the line. We have Jeff.
I think Mario's in two, I think.
Okay, there's Jeff. There,
Hello,
Mario.
everyone. So, good evening. I think we have a relatively straightforward budget that's consistent with the prior year. All things that are necessary for us to do our jobs, and for us to plan for litigation to the best we could possibly plan for litigation, which is many times unknown. Are there any questions for the budget that we have?
My question would be do you have enough, given the reval and the litigation that you'll probably get from that?
Well, I appreciate you asking that question, because we went to see Tom earlier today to make sure that one of the concerns I had was that we have a rollover for next year. And I know you can't promise that tonight, but that going into this budget conversation, you're aware of the fact that we probably be looking to roll over the professional, whatever we have balance wise for professional services this year to next year. I'm not one to ever try to spend down a budget. We have given money back year after year, not just rollovers, but we've actually given money back in the 10 years I've been here many times. And I'm a firm believer in we have to just do our jobs, and wherever things fall on a budget, they do. We're going to need the rollover because we're going to have a lot of work to do on the appeals starting in on July 1. Now, actually, we may have some in May and June, but certainly we're going to have a lot of costs in the next fiscal year budget. So,
And what was the other professional services in the last reval?
in the last revaluation, we spent a lot on professional services over time. But I don't know whether it was in the second or third year, the first, second, or third year of the reval that we did it. But we certainly spent a lot on, really it was the experts, the appraisers, and we've had, quite frankly, our assessor's office has been short-staffed for a really long time. We currently have staffing, a significant vacancy right now. So, it's more work that really our consultants have to do I think to compensate for it. I shouldn't say compensate for it, but sometimes an assessor may do a little bit more of that consulting work, him or herself. I expect that appraisers will do a lot of work in this reval cycle, as they did last time, in trying to give us assistance in the cases.
But might that have was that more than the 300,000 that you are budgeting, or is it?
I'm sure over the 5-year reval cycle, we spent in excess of 325,000, but that's over a 5-year cycle. So
I can show the history here. Just one second, Mario.
Sure.
So this is fiscal 19. So that was very low. That would have been after the first year Well, no, that would have been the year before, so 45,000, then it goes up to 201, 190, and then a couple of really big years there in 22 and 23. The largest, biggest legal challenges that took the longest to settle, right?
Yeah, there was those. We also had some outside legal services because we had a vacancy for Brian McCann's position, which we still have to fill. So it was a combination of a few things, and all those costs are not just for tax appeals. I mean, there's other litigation costs that we have, and we had the litigation with Mr. Milligan during those years, which there were some costs associated with that as well. But to answer your question, Ms. Yang, I think I'm hoping that this is an appropriate amount, and I've been, I think, able to rely on the Board of Estimate and Taxation to come back to you when we need something more, and to not over budget. And so I think with the understanding that we'll hopefully get a rollover in that line item, whatever we don't spend this year, I think that we should have sufficient funds for next year, and at some point, if we
So,
don't, we'll come back and see it, but I think we will.
and how much roughly was the total litigation for Milligan?
I don't remember. It spanned over a couple years' time. So I would say maybe a couple 100,000, if that, total over a couple years. That may have been 2-3 years' time. We rolled up our sleeves and did most of it in-house, quite frankly. But there was some costs that we incurred for Shipman and Goodwin because the redevelopment agency ran out of money at some point to fund it. That was their counsel. Obviously, we got a very good result. I'll just remind everybody, it was a settlement value of around $3.2 million, with my recollection was like 600 plus minus of cash plus, I'm sorry, more than that, actually. What am I saying? Yeah, anyways, it was a significant settlement that we got on behalf of the city and redevelopment agency.
Mario, I again, I appreciate and I applaud the way you've thought about the budget here. Recognizing that you're hoping to get the rollover, being a little bit conservative on other professional services. But as you said, should the need arise as we see more out of the marketplace impact of the reval, that's what contingency's for, and that's how we'll fund that as we need it going through the year. So I do appreciate the approach you've taken there.
Thank you. The mayor has beat up on us prior to this meeting and told us to keep it as low as possible. So we're doing our best.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, if I could just summarize then, it looks as if the rollover that you might need or could tap into, which might come out of a contingency, which we would need to budget, is about $250,000.
Well, no, actually, what I was going to suggest is that
Mario, you froze.
right now we're our own budget.
Oh, okay, because the
Can you hear me
actual,
again? Sorry about that. Could you hear me?
yeah, the actual right now is 59,000 and your budget is 350. So I just annualized it to 100, thinking that maybe you'd have a rollover or an underspent amount of about 250K.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I froze for a second there, but I was going to say that I assume when I refer to a rollover, it'd be money within our own budget.
Right.
Okay. Tom, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I just wanted to check on the subscriptions account. That's the 5234. Very difficult to see here. Where did you have that down at?
I have it at 35.5. I know we talked this afternoon that you thought it was a bit less than that, but I'm not quite sure where that came from.
No, the 35.5 is what I had sent you an email. Just for everybody knows, the 35.5 is because there was a 5% increase. That's mostly it's for our Westlaw subscription, which is basically the heartbeat of law department, is being able to do legal research online, use all the forms and stuff like that. So the 35.5 is fine.
Okay, good.
when we met today, you had said 36, I had said 35.5, so the 35.5 is fine.
Oh, you said you would get back to me with a number. You didn't tell me 35.5.
The 30, well, that I had sent you an email. I had sent you an email a couple of weeks ago. So the 35.5 is.
Yeah, that's where it came from. I remember now.
Okay, yeah, so we're good on that. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure that was the figure, not the 33,000, because we have a signed contract with Westlaw that's going to go up 5% for a portion of the fiscal year.
Okay.
35.5 is fine. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on Corporation Council?
Yeah, Ed, I have two questions. Mario, first question, you talked about the Milliken project. That's over with the lawsuit. When are we going to see things start to resume with the new developers there or the new owners?
My understanding is that that the current schedule is that they're trying to have a closing on the financing, which is complex because it involves both state and federal funding sources by the end of April. So the current projected closing date is April 3rd, is plus minus April 30th, and then they would mobilize to be starting construction on site within 30 days thereafter. So June 1 is the current dates that I am aware of. We diligently pursue updates on a regular basis from them, and the redevelopment agency and other city departments are actively involved with various facets of the project planning to be able to effectuate the funding, the funding that they are going to get as part of the public funding that they're going to get as part of the closing, including the housing authority, which is acting as a bonding authority as part of the process. So we continue to push to expedite the process to the best we can.
That's great. And are those taxes on that property currently?
I don't know. I would assume so. I would assume I would assume they're current. I don't know.
Okay.
I believe that's a better question for Lisa team than Mario and Jeff.
Well, Mario knows. If he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
All right,
sometimes I know these. Sometimes I do know these things. I don't know of any delinquency. There was a blight violation that they did pay off recently. So as far as I know, they're paid up on anything they owe the city.
Thank you, and I look forward to that because obviously, the sooner those projects roll with their COs, it helps on the commercial side. I assume, right? Is that?
It does. I mean, that property's a little unique because of the because of the tax agreement on it, but as part of the land disposition agreement. But yes, it's a great when that project gets moving. It's a great
My second question is, if you could, since we have you, can you talk to, since we read it in the paper last week, talk to us about the Board of Ed's hiring of an attorney and who did that work before they just hired that new attorney for. It was in the paper, I think, for $100,000+.
I can answer that. I work with the Board of Ed exclusively. Quite frankly, a lot of their work was being done by us. We handle a lot of their CHO. We're trying to now offload over to them. In addition, we're making it clear that should there be any resolution of any of the claims, that a lot of it's going to have to be borne by them rather than coming with the city. So a lot of it's going back. But to answer your specific question, they had a woman in there as an attorney, Barbara Namani, and she left around August, September, something like that. So she was there before that. There was another attorney. What they did was they brought in Louis Bray to be the replacement for Barbara Namani as the attorney for them. He had worked for Weston and Danbury as an attorney. He had also worked for some union at some point, so he had a good handle on labor law. But then the personnel director, their HR director, left. They left, a couple of them left. And so right now, Louis Bray is taking over as the HR director. So he was wearing two hats, he still is. One as their legal staff and Title IX coordinator, as well as their HR person. So they had to bring somebody else in. So I met her last week. I'm hoping to get some relief for our law department by having her take over some of the work that we've been shouldering for the Board of Ed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I make one last comment slash suggestion? This is again on the appeals process. I like how the appeals process work that you first had vision, then you go to BAA. Maybe there can be another step, like there's an appeals version of the Planning and Zoning Committee, but maybe you can actually have another separate appeal so that you have a few bites at the apple and hopefully some attrition before you actually get to litigation. So
unfortunately, we can't do that because you know the Norwalk is a creature of the state, and state statute provides that the process for redress with regard to tax appeals is that you could certainly participate in an informal process as part of the revaluation process prior to the assessor signing the grand list. Once the assessor signs the grand list, which is typically January 30th, but this year it took place in February because of the 1-month extension we got from the state because it was a revaluation year. That at that point, the assessor doesn't have the authority to change someone's tax assessment unless he determines there was a mistake, a clerical error or mistake, and that authority is derived from Connecticut General Statute 12-60. So the statutes are pretty clear that the power then to make a change is within the authority of the Board of Assessment Appeals under Connecticut General Statute 12-111, and the Board of Assessment Appeals then has 30 days to conduct their appeals. Thereafter, the assessor or the BA does not have the ability to then change any assessments. The only way to do so would be as part of the appeal process to court. So there is no, unfortunately, further flexibility. It's, you know, if the state changed their statutory process, there could be, but this is the process we have. And so property owners are required to file their appeals with the Superior Court. And because the BA is not in a position to really evaluate commercial properties, because they're not going to have the confidential income and expense information they would need in particular to do so, state statute provides that Board of Assessment Appeals could decide to not hear appeals for any commercial properties that exceed $1 million in assessment. And most BAs, at least the ones that I represent, do that. And so for those commercial property owners, their next step required really is to appeal to the Superior Court. So that's our process. We do, I'll just tell you, try to expedite the appeals for property owners, try to mitigate costs for everybody, but there's a process we have to undergo, particularly making sure that we have appropriate discovery compliance and that we're not missing anything. Property owners conveniently withhold sometimes evidence that's not helpful to their case, but helpful to our position. So we really have to make sure that we do our due diligence for our discovery process. And then we certainly work with folks to try to resolve the cases. In the last reval cycle, we've had really good results. And we're proud of the results we had. We didn't go to trial on any cases in the last cycle so far. We work hard up front with folks to try to resolve their cases.
Thank you.
Thank you again. All right, Tom, shall we move forward?
Yeah, but before we do that, I need to jump in. I saw Denise Brown on. Is she still here? I believe she's with Oak Hills, which would have been covered at 5:30. So Denise, if you're on, you may drop.
I think she did. I think I saw she left the meeting.
All right, then up next is Town Clerk Rick McQuaid.
Thank you, everybody.
Good evening, everyone.
Go ahead, Rick, take it away.
Well,
No intro.
it's pretty cut and dry as usual. I think I can piggyback off what Mario said about, trying to find ways of keeping it low cost. The only what if we seem to have, we're being held a little hostage right now, is what's going to happen with this upcoming election, as far as the expense for early voting and absentee and all the costs involved. But I think working with Stuart and Brian with the registrars. We got a pretty good handle on it, so it looks good.
Okay. Hey, Rick, it's a small number, but why the jump in temporary salary for next year
It's the same thing.
and for part-time?
Yeah, it's the part-time. All of that is the part-time that related to the elections. Yeah.
Okay, thank you
Yeah,
very much
yeah.
for the clarification.
Thank you.
Ed, yeah, just the 23 actuals were pretty high in both of those categories. That's why we bumped those up. So,
No, thank you.
okay.
If,
All
if, if I could make a comment, I think our town clerk's office is extremely well run and coming in well under $1 million for all that you do. You're clearly punching above your weight. And so if all of our departments were like this, I'm sure there would be significant cost savings. So thank you for a great job at a relatively low price.
And thank you for those compliments. My staff is the one that do it. I'm just the steer the ship, but they are the best.
Okay,
Moving on.
let's keep going, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Have a great night.
So, up next is Human Resources and Personnel, and we have Tina here with us this evening to talk about coming in perfectly at 3.0%.
Hello, everyone. Good night. Good evening. So our budget is pretty static, except for the small increases based on, contractual wages, et cetera. Last year, we implemented a new project that we're still working on. And so we thought it was best to complete that project, which is our NeoGov project that you supported last year, which we really appreciated. And so we're status quo right now, other than the contractual, which is why we were able to come in at about 3%.
Okay. Questions from anyone? All right, seeing none. Tom, let's keep rolling here.
Thank you, Tina. Moving on to registrar of voters, we have Stuart Wells here. $19,000 year over year, 3.2%. No major increases other than election supplies, but that's understandable given what's coming down the pipe with the presidential election. Stuart, take it away.
Well, I'm not sure if you have enough in there for the early voting. We have to do 4 days of it this year, in this fiscal year, in about a month, and 21 days in the fall, presumably. We don't, of course, know if there'll be congressional primaries, but 14 days for sure for the presidential election. For any of you that don't know, we expect about 45,000 voters to vote in that election, whereas our municipal has about 15,000. So obviously there's more costs in personnel and ballots and such. And the legislature, in their wisdom, has added all this early voting. Won't probably change the overall number who vote much, but they will vote early. So we've got to run an operation for 14 days before the general election. It's going to take 3,000 or 4,000, probably 4,000 a day in personnel. Again, the great unknown, how many people are going to want to do it? We're hoping and expecting maybe a quarter of the voters, which would have a great benefit in other areas. One, it would save us a little bit at the polls, but more to the point, it would save problems with parking in presidential years. Our schools only have so much room. If a quarter of the vote was already in, they wouldn't be going to the polls. We had pretty much that situation in 2020 with the absentee balloting way up with COVID. And although they kept saying on the news that there'd be long lines and people all showed up at 5 a.m, so to take disadvantage of that. We really didn't have any, which we could have told them, but because if a quarter of the votes in, the lines don't get pressed in the same way. Weekends will be big in early voting because the hours are really not favorable to commuters except on the weekends. But weekends are have to keep City Hall open and so forth. But other than that, really not a lot of changes. We got 10,000 in this for this year from the state. They may or may not be putting more in. I wouldn't bet on it, but maybe something. So the great unknowns in here about this. Incidentally, we're getting new tabulators sometime, probably in the next fiscal year. That's on the state's money, but we have to train for them and figure out how to run them. We're getting a new state computer system for registering voters. We'll all have to learn how to use that and train our people at the polls to use it. And a new election reporting system as well. So a lot of changes, which inevitably are going to take staff time to figure out.
Understood. And if we see those things again, I'd ask Stuart to come forward and leverage contingency should those should the unknowns when the unknowns come known.
We've been trying to keep the departments apprised of all these kinds of things, and to some extent we've squirreled away a few dollars already this year out of this year's budget for equipment we'll be using. It'd be one-time charges for things. We got to get a fireproof cabinet because we have to store these uncounted ballots in fireproof condition between the time they're voted and the time we give them to the town clerk, things like that. But then we've got it.
Understood. Okay. Questions from anybody for Stuart?
Stuart, real quick, this is Troy Joe. Quick question. Regarding they're going to have the ballot. You could for the early voters, you can drop your ballot in like at City Hall. There were a number of them around the city. Will that be the case for this general election in November?
Yes, but only as absentee ballots. Can you do that? The early voting, you got to come in and do it personally and drop it in a box there. But they're not. They don't go through the tabulator. So our extra costs include having to open all those envelopes on election day, run them through tabulators, and deal with all of that. So that's going to take more people if we're going to get the job. Just because there's more work.
The boxes will only be for the absentee ballots, you said?
Yes, although they're probably going to try to put on the ballot a change in those rules for no excuse absentee voting. It's pretty minimal excuse now. And there'll be a slight reduction probably in the absentees this year because a lot of people would come in and do them in person, and they'll go to early voting. But you could still do it in person for the earlier part of the absentee periods.
And how many of those boxes will be around town?
I think they have 3, but that's the town clerk owns them.
And the last question is, how many are you required? Is there a requirement for how many absentee ballots you can make in your, like how many people can make? One person can only make one deposit into that ballot box. Is that true? I remember seeing that.
Yes, the Bridgeport ran into that problem in this last thing. You're supposed to deposit your own.
Right.
Frankly, they could use slightly better rules because if you brought your aged grandmothers over and she couldn't get out of the car, maybe I don't know why you couldn't take that to the drop box. And probably that would count as her own, or at least I would, but there's no hard and fast rule on that at the moment. But you certainly can't gather up all your friends and neighbors' ballots. You're not supposed to be handling those kind of ballots yourself.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right. Anything else here I just want to keep us cognizant of time. Thank you, Stuart. Tom, where to next?
Fire department. So we're gonna skip past all the police here. Just go down to the bottom line for fire real quick. You can see it's an increase of 3.1%, $707,000. I'll pop back up to the top of their section. I believe we have Chief Gatto here.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yep, we got you, Chief.
Yes, Chief.
So we were requesting actually an additional firefighter for the rescue truck for 4 new personnel, about 300 and something $1,000, but we took that out because Tom said there's no new hires. There are other lines that look like they went up a lot. If you want me to go through every single one, or if you have certain questions specifically, I'm not sure where you want me to start.
Chief, I don't think you need to go through every single line item, but a couple of the ones that jump out, you know, a $34,000 increase in water. What drives that cost?
Okay, that's our favorite subject. Let me pull it up here. Okay, water. That's the fire hydrant rentals from the 2 water companies, First District Water and South Norwalk Electric. So of course, when we set or work on the budget, we don't know what their increases are going to be because they won't tell us. So what we did for this round was we increased it. We increased it by 10% just to try to eliminate coming back and asking for more money later on. So that's where that 391 is a pretty high number compared to the actual. But it also includes the hydrant painting that we've been doing. So between the 886 hydrants from First District Water and the 589 from South Norwalk Electric, we are at, it's like 385, I believe, something in that area. So that's the big increase, is we're trying to project what they didn't tell us.
Chief, I will be the first to admit that my memory stinks.
No,
but I thought we had come to an agreement with at least South Norwalk that there were going to be publishing rates and publishing increases on a basis that allowed us to plan. As again, my memory stinks, and if I am not remembering that correctly, please clarify it for me.
No, well, they promised that they would give us warning, that they would send us a letter to say this is what our increases are going to be. Well, I will just pull up my file here. January 16th, the 3rd taxing district, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. That's for the firehouse rental. They did send some type of notice that they're going to increase. I don't have it in front, but no, you're not forgetting things. That they were supposed to do that, but I don't think both of them do that. I think only one of them will do that. And I think it's the South Norwalk Electric will do that, which is the lesser amount of the 2.
Yeah, and I think it's a timing issue. This happens every year after the budget's been locked in and set. Then they come along with their increases, and we're sort of stuck. So I think what the chief and his team are trying to do here is head off,
protect against that. Yeah,
yeah, have
right.
Given that you are their largest customers, not that you have an alternative, but there's no opportunities for greater discounts.
Well, I'll tell you, and my memory's pretty good on this one, Chief. they are constantly telling us what a great deal we have and reminding us of what the other municipalities pay and how we're getting a great deal. So
Yes, they are.
I don't
And
know if
they
there's
do.
any truth to that. Hold on just one second, folks. Denise, I see that you're on. Yeah, the regular BET meeting was at 5:30 this time. This is just the operating budget review. So I assume you're here for Oak Hills, in which case,
Okay.
no,
I'm sorry.
no questions came up. You're off the hook. If anything does happen to come up via email, I will let you know.
Oh, I'm okay. I apologize for the wrong time.
No,
Okay.
it's just this one time a year when we're doing the budget reviews. Well, I think this is going to be the last time we do this, but we pulled it forward by 1 hour. So
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
you're welcome.
Bye-bye. Okay.
Sorry, back to fire.
Tom, you are correct that they do say how relatively inexpensive their rentals are compared to other companies like Aquarian Water Company. Actually, I've talked to several different departments who has Aquarian, and Aquarian actually charges them by the linear feet of pipe that's in the ground. And some of these places are paying close to $1 million for their water. So comparing the two, yeah, we are cheaper, but unfortunately it keeps going up every year. Eventually we'll get to that point.
Yep.
Sorry.
Ed, I have a question for the chief.
Yes,
Chief,
Mr.
utility companies are regulated by PURA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Agency.
Yes.
Is there anything that we can have looked at if they constantly are raising our rent for the fire hydrants? I mean, there should be some sort of a control over percentages. I'm not sure if they have to go before PURA to do that, or they just can arbitrarily increase our rental fees.
Mayor, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't know if they're a private company.
No, they're a municipality.
Okay, well, then whatever the board of directors vote on, I guess. I don't really know. That would be a good question for Corporation Council to look into.
I think that's correct.
All right, if we're all set, I'm just going to sort of scroll down slowly just to get through the rest of the fire in case anything else jumps out at anybody that they wish to bring up before we.
You know, I want to give Chief Gatto and his team a lot of credit. They came in, we're looking at 3% maximum. They came in at, I believe, 3.1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I don't see the bottom line there, but, they've worked very hard to keep that number down, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any additional questions from any other board members for the chief? All right. Seeing none, Tom, I think we can move on.
All right, final department of the evening.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Final one for the evening is the police department. So here's the total here. You can see it's 846,000 or 3% spot on.
Again, I want to give them a lot of credit. I know Mr. Dosimo and the chief and his team really work hard to scrub this as much as they can. We've asked them to come in at 3%, and that's the number they hit exactly.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, we're right at 3% after cuts, but that is still keeping several important initiatives going. Some of the main drivers of that increase is the behavioral health unit contract for the 2 full-time behavior health clinicians. Went from $237,000 to $300,000. That service is still invaluable because they're working full-time out of the behavioral health unit, and they're servicing a lot of people every single day, every single month in the social clinician field. The crossing guards contract, which has been a success, a program that we implemented last year with the civilianization of the school crossing guard program, in replacing the program that was managed out of police department. That contract goes from $386 to $398. Departmental wide salaries As you can see, when 20,525,874 to 21,249. So they're a significant driver of the increase. Training overtime, we asked for an increase in that to 560 to 720. Right now, we have a very young police department. In the past 2 years, there's 57 new officers. In the past year, we've had 23 promotions. There's 9 new lieutenants, 13 new sergeants, new deputy chiefs. So my agenda for training is very important. We have a lot of leadership training going on. We have a lot of supervisor training going on. And to include, I failed to mention, we also have 6 new detectives. The training that they have required to a crime scene, interview and interrogation, photography, DNA. So we have to continue this training for all the, it's been a generational shift in the police department in the past year. So we need to professionalize our services and continue the training which is required for all these new promotions and our junior officers. We have several very young patrolmen, and we also continue some of their in-service training in regards to DUI, accident investigation, and other training which is important for their daily tasks. Axon and lieutenant sergeant testing. We will be having a lieutenant and sergeant's test this fall. Currently, the lieutenant and sergeant's list will expire within the next 90 days, I do believe. So according to drop plan estimates, we will have some retirements in the next 2 years. So we are planning to have lieutenants and sergeants tested this fall to have those vacancies filled when those officers retire. And the Axon contract that we renewed last year was $460. This year was $537,000. And the wellness checks, which is required by a post in the accountability bill, is $20,625. Also, there's one new initiative is we are relocating the Norwalk Police Marine Division to another location. So we are seeing an increase in rent. Our current location, we've been there for over 45 years. It's become untenable due to flooding and damage to the building, and all kinds of issues with rodents, electrical services. So we found another suitable location on the water, a little bit more south of that location, which will provide us a quicker response in the harbor. It's more suitable. It provides us dock space and storage for all our equipment. So we did see an increase in that. That item was approved by the Common Council last Tuesday. So those are some of the most significant drivers of the budget. We did cut $160,000 when asked a couple of weeks ago. So we are just probably at 3.0 based on myself and Mr. Dossimo's efforts. We're about 2.96. We think it's a reasonable budget, and we'll get a lot done with that money.
Thank you, Chief. Just one question from me, because I'm staring at it at the middle of the screen that Tom is sharing right now. You've got almost $800,000 in reductions in regular and overtime salary for uniform patrols. I assume that's just rebalancing to other line items within your budget, given that overall that number is going to go up.
Yeah, so Chief, I think when you were talking earlier about the new detectives, new lieutenants, and people who've moved to other organizations, they were, or a number of them were formerly part of uniform patrol, and perhaps some of them have moved to administrative, detective bureau, SVU, etc. So there are probably some corresponding ups in other organizations, Ed.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah. So I believe it was fall or winter where there was a request for an increase because of the security at the schools. Is that accounted for in the budget?
That is an initiative that's usually asked and driven by Norwalk Public Schools. That was done post Uvalde in June of 2022. We started that initiative. So we did not include that in the budget. That would have driven us significantly over 3.0 based on that, the money that we do spend on that. And we were told to come in at 3.0 and we did. That would have driven it well over 3.0.
Or will that be like a request from contingency or not a request at all?
That's going to need further discussion with Norwalk Public Schools to see what security requests they do need in the school year of 2024 and 2025.
Yeah,
So
Kendrick,
we may be back.
yeah, I don't think there's any formal agreement. It's, I think they sort of take the temperature of things and make that decision later on in the year.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
One thing I want to add about the Marine unit that Chief Walsh was talking about, that's also that results in a savings on the capital side as well. That was in their 5-year plan. I don't recall how many years out, but it was part of the 5-year plan. So let's say it was 300,000 or whatever it was, but that is no longer there. So that's it's an immediate savings for them in terms of safety and efficiency, but it's also a longer term plan for the city in terms of saving on capital and having to bond for that.
And the line item for storage, 76,000, which is much higher, is that because of the move?
Sorry, Ann, can you read that or the account number and then I can scroll to it?
Yeah, it's storage. It's line 217.
Right here.
So it was nominal in previous years. The request much higher, and then you reduced it. So I didn't know whether that was because of
that is the Marine Division lease agreement. It's $71,000, and we also it's $71,000. That includes a large office space, a large storage garage, and 100 linear feet of dock space year round and winter storage. And I also budgeted $5,000 to $6,000 to take care of the utilities.
Okay.
I know Chief Walsh won't toot his own horn, but I will. That 128 is what it started out as. The 76 was after his hard-nosed negotiations.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
There are two fairly large other professional services lines, one in community police with roughly 700,000. And then there's another for 537,000 in planning, research, accreditation.
Yes. Under community services, excuse me, the behavioral health unit and the school crossing guard program is managed out of that line item. So those two items that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the behavioral health unit and school crossing guards, of the $300,000 and the $398,000, those are the civilian crossing guards, and those are the two clinicians with Recovery Network for the behavioral health.
Okay.
And what was the second one, ma'am?
It then in planning, research, and accreditation for 537,000.
Yes, that is the lieutenant and sergeant testing I refer to, and that is also our Axon body camera program. The body camera, Axon is the company that provides body cams, and they manage our whole program. They supply our whole program of body cams, tasers, all the storage of all the video, but that also includes all the dash cams, which we are required to install according to the Accountability Act. So we've had to increase that budget due to unfunded mandates set forth by the legislation to comply with that, with having a dash cam in every single police car. And a lot of that is cloud storage and other plans that we do to assure for officer accountability that officers are using their body cams when they're supposed to be.
Got it. And that is an outsourced service, and it makes sense.
It's Axon. It's the provider is Axon. That's the name of the company.
Right. Okay.
You're welcome.
Additional questions for Chief and his team? Thank you very much, Chief, and I'll echo the mayor's comments on all of the departments tonight for being so diligent and so thoughtful and trying to limit the expense given everything else that's going on in the city right now. Before we close, Mr. Mayor, any other remarks for this evening?
No, again, as I said, we put the word out to the department heads. They are truly dedicated and committed to keeping within budget and to keeping the budget as low as they possibly can. And I truly appreciate it. I know it's tough with prices going up and everything, but I think when push comes to shove, they do what they have to do, and I think I really want to commend them.
I would wholeheartedly agree. All right, and so I think, Tom, that ends us for tonight, correct? We're back together on Wednesday to do community development, transportation, parking, planning and zoning, code enforcement, business development, arts, historical, and the art commission. Do I have that correct, Tom?
You do, and I'll have that run rate forecast set up, and I'll get those. I'll get that file out tomorrow. So.
Okay.
And Tom, is Troy, just to recap, tomorrow the Common Council's meeting to set the cap. Is that correct?
Correct. It's
That's correct.
7:30. So.
Yep.
Good.
All right. Then I don't do for an operating budget review. Do we need a motion to adjourn, or do we just say thank you and we'll see you on Wednesday?
And just to be safe, why don't you do it just to be safe?
Just to be safe, then can I get a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting? Thank you, Kendrick. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much, ladies and
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
We'll see you on Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank